A bit of irony that it is me moderating a panel on technology, as in my professional life, I love what it has done. In my personal life, I am scared to death. My husband is laughing that I am in front of a bunch of tech folks. And so is our engineer at Root Sports, who is somewhere in the audience who knows that the way to fix my computer is just stand anywhere in the vicinity of it. But I know that everybody uses technology in different ways. It touches all of our lives, and I'm curious, especially after some of the comments that we heard today from previous panelists and guests, how does technology come into play as a football athlete and as a swimmer? Ariana, start.
So I am happily retired for 4 years, but technology, I think, is an interesting piece, and we were just talking about this, because for swimming, we train 365 days a year for a 2-minute race, essentially, and so there's not a lot of feedback, there's not a lot of give and take, or watching videos on the sidelines. It's not something that swimmers do. However, during my 10-year career on the national team, there was so many changes in terms of technology, in terms of suit technology and swim caps and goggles. And 30 years ago, they weren't wearing goggles during races. And so advances like that, as well as, we watch video, we know how far your distance per stroke is, and we have a technique guru who, not only does all of the analysis on our race, but if you watched in 2012, we made a Call Me Maybe video of the Olympic swim team. I'm not sure if anyone saw that, but
I loved that one.
Yeah, it was a good one. And so that went viral during our training camp, and our technique guru was actually the one who cut that. So we're very thankful for him. But yeah, I think it plays a big role and continues to, as athletes are swimming even later in terms of burnout for their bodies.
We'll get to the suit technology in just a second. Doug, what role does tech play for you as an athlete?
Yeah, so we use it in a multi-faceted role. First and foremost, we have, the one that's most prevalent for us as athletes is we have the GPS system that we wear when we go out to practice. We also have a heart monitor that we wear across our chest. So basically what this does is it monitors and keeps track of our load and our workload throughout the course of the day in practice. So we can come off the practice field, they can tell us, okay, you've exceeded your workload for this day. We need you to come back in tomorrow morning and get some rehab, because we know that your body's gonna be more sore than it typically will be with a normal workload. So our coaching staff, the staff that we have in place, they're all able to have access to that information to make sure that we're performing at the highest level that we possibly can.
Okay, so let me just paint the picture. When he says that they're wearing this, literally this is sewn into their practice jerseys, because every day when Doug comes off the field, he walks over to the trainer lifts it up, unhooks them, plugs it in, and then I'm assuming it gets downloaded. When you say it measures your workload, what is it actually measuring? What gets printed out and given to you?
Well, we don't get anything. They want to keep that a secret from us. No, I mean, majority of the information, again, is kept with the coaching staff, with the tech gurus, if you will, and they use that information, like I said, to determine what our workload is, and that's over a course of time. So then we get this baseline that they can use the data for, and yeah, so we'll come in and typically what it measures is, as a receiver, how quickly I come out of my breaks, how much force I'm putting into the ground, how strenuous my heartbeat is throughout the course of practice, and how many reps I'm taking. And they calculate that in some way, put it into some formula, and then they come out with some figure at the end.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And Ariana, I would guess that the swimsuits and the way that those have changed does something similar, maybe not quite force and reps, but how does that work?
Well, so it was the 2008 Olympics that was the only Olympics that had to do with the suit technology. And so over time, we had started to add more material to our suits. And so in 2000, in the Sydney Olympics, the suits went all the way down to your ankles. And if you remember the great Australian Ian Thorpe, the torpedo, he was in a full body from wrists to his ankles. He was in a suit. And we later found out that the material was polyurethane, which by nature just allows you to float. And so when this came to be in 2008, it was really interesting on the swimming community, because that's kind of what we were made for already. That's what made swimmers great, is our ability to float, but our ability to use our core and our technique. And so all of the sudden, it even the playing field, which is what we thought. So in 2008, some of the metrics they were looking at was just putting that suit on made you 2% faster. And so that was a guarantee. You put this new suit on and you were 2% faster. And so a lot of athletes waited until the Olympic trials in 2008 to actually put the suit on. And so we had the laser, which is what we called it then. It wasn't entirely polyurethane at that point. And some athletes just burst onto the scene and had incredible performances. For myself personally, it didn't help me at all. My times were exactly the same. And so what I did was I took the suit and I started wearing it in practice every single day. And so most of the time in practice, we wear just the regular old school cut, no legs on them. And I started wearing it because it allowed me to float. It was messing up my stroke technique. So we broke down all of my strokes during that period of time. During 1 year, I changed every single stroke. I'm a 200 individual medley swimmer, so I swim one lap of every stroke. We started from just the ground up and built my stroke. And that was the single reason why I broke the world record in 2009 that stood for 6 years, because I broke down everything that I was doing, having a really strong emphasis on technology, because we didn't think that they were going away. While as athletes, we were kind of angry about it because it was just different. But we realized that we had to embrace it and make some changes.
You have had to embrace it. You embraced it at a different point in your career. Doug, I can kind of see the look on your face. I don't know that you have played football without some of this technology. How does an athlete go about embracing something that's new? Because you guys are so much creatures of habit in the way you do things.
Yeah, so this is twofold. So the first issue, I won't say issue, the positive side of the technology is that we are getting this feedback. So this guy's name is Sam Ramsden. He's the tech guru for us. And basically he comes to me and he says, hey, your workload was too heavy last week. We need you to tailor it down this week. And so, I get to go in the next week and kind of chill out and practice a little bit.
Which he never really does, by the way. He says he is. He never really does.
I say chill out, but more so it's just a thought. It doesn't actually happen. But the side effect of it is that a lot of players are worried that the organization itself is taking this technology and performing a graph on our performance and basically being able to determine whether or not we are declining earlier than they would be able to see with their own eyes on the field. And so a lot of athletes are worried that they're taking that technology and they're going to cut the players that aren't performing at the highest level as they were maybe a couple months ago. So that's also the concern. I mean, obviously, with technology in any arena, there's going to be some worry about it, but I think that's the two main issues that we have with the technology.
So what is the conversation in the locker room with the guys? Because I would imagine it's come up.
It has. It's across the entire spectrum. So some guys are really anxious and really excited about getting their feedback, the information about their workload or what they did that day or that week. Other guys are like, don't put it on me. I'm not going to wear it. So we've seen every response, but it's, for the most part, a lot of guys are buying into it slowly.
That would be hard. And Ariana, that's one of those things, like you think, oh, this is cool to get the feedback until you realize that every single person has a crummy day at work. I do not want my crummy results printed out for everybody or my boss to see every day. So how do you approach that, knowing that anybody can get that feedback?
Well, so with swimming, even though our race is only 2 minutes, some are as long as 8 minutes, we are known for being trainers. We train ever since I was 12 years old. I was doing doubles. I was up at 4 a.m. in the water. We were putting 5 to 8 hours in the pool long before any of this technology, really came into our hands. And so how I've seen it play in is, so we used to just think, just keep pounding the yardage and you'll be fast. And so swimmers would burn out by the time they were 23 or 24. Now, a week ago we saw Michael Phelps make his 5th Olympic team. He's 31 years old. And, I was fortunate to live during the Michael Phelps era, and I've been on the national team with him for 12 years. And what I'll say is, in 2008 was the most extraordinary performance we've ever seen. But he's become a very smart athlete in terms of he's not putting in the yardage that he used to. His body knows how to take a stroke of butterfly. It knows that. Now he's looking at, how can I become more powerful maybe outside of the pool? How can I take these tools? And we're looking at blood work and lactic acid, and we're paying attention to nutrition and things like that in order to figure out how to get better without burning our shoulders out by swimming 6 hours in the pool day in and day out. So that's how, in an amazing way, we've really taken it into our hands in swimming.
I would think that comes into play an awful lot in football. Doug, you're going to get to that in just a second. But how do you balance? So you've got strokes and you've got the angles and the water and how much is too much information?
That's a good question. I think that, there's a difference between feel and there's a difference between having all this info coming at you. And so what I'll say is in 2008, Michael's, I continue to use him, but his 200 butterfly, if you remember, it was a really crucial gold medal for him on his quest to 8 golds. When he dove in, his goggles started leaking a little bit. And with every single lap, he basically couldn't see anymore. So his last 50, he had no idea where he was, but he knew that he took 21 strokes to get to the wall. And he'll be the first one to say this. He said this publicly. He said, I knew that 21 strokes would get me there. And he just had a feeling, and he touched the wall, and it was right. And he ripped his goggles off, and his eyes were bloodshot. But I think there is such a thing as too much. I think, we need that feel. But at the same time, it's allowing us to do some incredibly extraordinary things. You look at Katie Ledecky. She's a poster child right over there. And Katie's doing things differently because she can swim 100 freestyle, which is 54 seconds. And she can also swim an 800 freestyle, which is 8 minutes and 6 seconds is what she does it in. You go back to Janet Evans. Janet Evans could swim the 400 and the 800. It was, a completely different ballgame. And Katie's figured out how to train that's very much race-oriented. She's not necessarily putting in the kind of yards that Janet did. So I think it's helpful in a huge way, and it's preventing injury. It's allowing swimmers to do multiple strokes. And, for myself, it allowed me to rebuild my strokes from the ground up. Without the technology piece, without being able to analyze my stroke day in and day out, I don't think I could have done that as quickly as I did.
Okay, we'll get back to that in just a sec. But Doug, when you talk about sometimes there is too much information. Sometimes...
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
You did not.
She said that.
But the general discussion is sometimes there's too much information. I'm curious, when I'm watching you on the sidelines during the games, right? Defense is on the field, offense is taking a look at the surface, and you've got, Daryl Bevel's coming over and talking. How do you process that information? How do you use that in real time to make it valuable for you?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but on the sidelines, we use the Microsoft Surface. We get these, the digital images of the field sent right to the surface so that we can look at plays and go over the series when we're on the sideline and try to make corrections as we go along. The thing that I've noticed is that all of us are different. So I can look at this one sheet of paper that's telling me that this defensive back is in this position, this particular position, and I have a completely different take on it than Daryl Bevel, our offensive coordinator, would. And he's telling me to do one thing, and I'm telling him that's not going to work. I got to do this, and we're looking at the same picture. So in that regard, I would say that the information, I want as much data as I can get, but it's going to be up to the user of that data to distinguish what portion of that data is going to be useful. And so for us, it is useful, but at the same time, we still, as people, as human beings, have to be on the same page.
Yeah, and you've got to goes back to the feel thing, right? You have to know kind of when it feels right and when the numbers are going to help you with that. Okay, so let's get down to just the physicality and the physical part of football. The previous panel was on virtual reality and augmented reality, which is kind of the next hottest thing, I've been told. How does that play into being able to train? Do you use it? Are you involved with it? Is it something that football would find more useful than other sports?
I don't use it. It's just not readily available to me in terms of my profession. But I am involved with a company that is working on some technology that can be incorporated into football helmets. I don't know if you guys have heard of Vices. They're pretty big. No? He'll come up here and talk to you guys at 2:45, don't worry. But I do think that there is a niche for it. I don't know specifically what yet or how yet. I think that a lot of the athletes now, we're all old school. We want the physicality. We want the practice reps. We want to smell the grass. We want to feel the air. It's different. So putting yourself in a virtual reality realm or, augmenting your reality, it changes things. And so I don't know how that approach is going to be executed, but I'm really interested to see how it can benefit us as athletes in the future.
Ariana, you mentioned that your swimming career, they didn't even have that technology, right? Would you have wanted it?
I think in a way you go back to visualization, and I have a really robust mindfulness practice and meditation practice that I started when I was really young. And I think, just based on all of the research that I read, the reason why we went through visualization and what it sounds like is with this new technology is because your mind doesn't know if you're actually doing it or if you're just doing it in your head. And so I think as an athlete, I did it just so I could rehearse races and I could, see it and feel it before I got there. But I agree, there's such a thing. I mean, with the water, I was talking to somebody about just the magic of the water. And I mean, it still comes back to me. I don't swim very often, but when I dive in, there's just this piece of, a flat surface. And I was at Olympic trials last week, and I was there late one night, and the pool was just flat and calm. And there's something so magical about that feeling and being able to just fully immerse yourself in that. So it's something I haven't experienced, so I don't know, but I'm really curious how swimmers will take that into our sport.
You mentioned, kind of where technology could take you based on a panel that you heard earlier this morning. And just kind of like, what would happen if your coach could be in your ear during an entire 8-minute race? What's the thing you'd like to see out there that you would have liked to have had?
So when we were playing with the suits, we brought ourselves back really old school. So we don't have polyurethane suits anymore. Across the board, everyone said it's too much technology, we need to go back. And so they brought us back to knee suits. In 2000 we had ankle suits. So we've gone back a little bit, and we don't have the time to go through plays or go through strokes on the sideline, but we have, just on a pool deck, talked about what would happen if you had your coach in your ear, or if there was more of a feedback loop as you were performing. I'm not sure where the sport will go, because in a lot of ways we appreciate the authenticity of just a person in a pool swimming as fast as they possibly can, and the power and the beauty that comes within it. And I'll even just this Olympic trials for swimming, Michael set out to change the sport of swimming, and he did. We were NBC primetime for all 8 nights of our Olympic trials. We had a sold-out stadium, which is unreal, and they're making it a fan experience, which I think is incredible for this sport. But yeah, I don't know if I would want my coach in my ear the whole time. That would be a lot.
Doug, would you want your coach in your ear the whole time?
Of course not.
I know, it sounds so horrible. Because at the end of the day, you do all this preparation. It's the reason why we prepare, so that when we stand on the blocks, when you get on the field, it's just me and my team. For you, it's your team and these people, and you come together and you do so much work in preparation so that you can execute the most incredible race that you can. And I want to make sure that I've had enough information, I've had enough time so that I can do that.
I hear that we've got a couple audience questions coming up, but I get 1 or 2 more questions before we do that. Doug, has the technology that you're exposed to every day at practice made you more interested in technology just as a whole?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that all of us, all of the athletes on the field or in the locker room, we ask questions. We're not shy to ask questions. So we want to know how this technology is not only benefiting us, but if it's not to the benefit of us in the long run. So we're always asking questions. Myself personally, as I've already mentioned, involved with a company called Vices Helmets, doing different things outside of the realm of football to get myself involved in technology, because obviously technology has changed the world, and it's not going to change anytime soon.
And Ariana, any off-field technology endeavors for you?
Nope.
Not yet.
Yeah.
How about not yet?
Not yet. No,
She's open for opportunities.
I think the app world and the work that I do with Pete Carroll at the Seahawks through Win Forever, where we have a suite of apps. And, I think, we're in a digital world where we're so connected, and we need things in our pocket that are constantly buzzing at us. And I think, I use that as an athlete. I was using kind of a meditation, but I'm
not there yet. Open for opportunities, like I said. And we're open for a couple of questions from the audience. I see one over there. Can you yell it out really loudly? He's coming. Oh, he's coming with a microphone. We'll put you on the spot here. Really loudly.
All right, I can project.
Bam, I love that. Here we go.
Do either one of you feel like technology kind of takes away a little bit of that gut instinct that, has been successful for athletes for, 150 years, that mentality?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with feel. I know without talking to my tech guru that my stroke is off because I can feel it. And, I think that that's what makes great athletes. I know that and I know the feeling when I haven't been in touch with my gut or my feel and I haven't had my best performances. And so I think that it is going to be a nice balance between we have all this incredible information, we should use it to our advantage to get better. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why we're made up the way that we are, and we have instincts and beliefs about ourselves and our sport that, we hope to take with us along the way.
Yeah, as a professional athlete, I think, it's very difficult to get away from what we truly care about. And it's not necessarily just the sport, it's not necessarily winning, it's more so the journey to get there. And it's times like she was saying, when you're out at the pool late at night and you're about to go do your workout and the pool's quiet. Or when I'm going to the field and nobody's around, it's 12 o'clock at night and it's just me on the field and I can see the light shining on the grass. That feeling is, you can't replace it. And so when you talk about that gut feeling, we need to have that when we're on the football field. No matter how much data or information or how many times we spent in virtual reality, augmented reality, that can't change, because at the end of the day, you have to make the decisions. In a split second when I catch a ball, I can't make a decision, okay, the data said this, so I should do this. I can't do that. Yes, maybe it'll help me in terms of repetition, but when I'm on the field, I'm not thinking about that. It has to be second nature.
Out here with the Seahawks jersey.
Oh, yeah. Hi there. Ariana, this is not to take away from you. I think you're wonderful, but this question is for Doug. Doug, how does it feel to be one of the best damn wide receivers in the NFL? OBJ, psh.
Thank you.
Was that a plant question, Doug?
He was in a Hawks jersey.
I've never seen him in my life, so I didn't plant that. I appreciate that comment. Honestly, it's just I've got great teammates. I've got a great coaching staff, so it's not just me. We've got a great group of people together that enable me to do what I've been able to do, and all of us together.
Got one more question.
Yeah, one more right out here.
There, and then I've got to let these fine folks get on. Go ahead.
Great. I'll try to keep this simple, but I know wearables have become such a big part of how we track athletes and their performance. So this is kind of a two-parted question. I remember seeing Andrew Hawkins at a conference talking about how he wished he could just rip off the freaking wearable and throw it and just go measure that. What can we do to make wearables better? And secondly, do you ever worry about security? Because with all the data flying around, having your personal data hacked could be very frightening.
I never wore a wearable.
Okay, so I'll answer the wearable. So yes, when we first started wearing it, it was very uncomfortable. The suits that we had to wear that were woven with the wearables and the heart monitor, they were very tight to our skin. It wasn't something that we'd normally wear throughout the course of a game or typically through practice, and so they became irritating. But we complained, and they adapted.
You voiced your concerns. That's how you say that.
No, we complained, let me be honest. And they adapted. They changed the material that we were wearing. They made it in a more comfortable position. So it's been a lot better. In terms of how you can make it better, I really don't know. I mean, all this is still new to me. I've been wearing it for 5 years now since I've been in the NFL. So it's all new to me. But the consistent progress of changes that they've made that have been enhancing the technology, I think they're on the right track.
I think we have time for one more audience question.
There was a gentleman right there who had his hand up before. Yep.
If you can pass this down.
So a lot of this data is going to be used to monitor kids. And I'm wondering, for both of you athletes, if you'd grown up having every training monitored, would you be where you are today?
Great question. Really good question. I'm lucky where I get to work with a lot of kids through some swim clinics that I do, and I spent a whole weekend with them. And when I take myself back, I have 2 sisters, an older and a younger, and we all 3 swam Division I college. They were extraordinary athletes. And what I'll say in that aspect, and we were having this conversation too, all of that information is so great, and you can choose what you do with it. You can let it become you, and you can be consumed by the data, or you can choose to let it help you. And let it take you to places that you might not have in your career. So what I'll say to kids in that regard, or what I would have said to my former self, is take it and use it, because what an incredible, privilege that you have access to this kind of information. But also remember, going back to the gut, that you have these talents and these skills that make you who you are, and don't forget about that.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. The one thing I would add is that, my little brother's back there right now, and talking about technology, I can't get it out of his hands, but when we talk about technology and how it enhances athletes' performance, I would just go back, yes, use the data, because the data is useful, but it can never replace work ethic. It doesn't matter how much information is telling you about, okay, you should do it at this angle, or you should swing at this amount of degrees, or whatever it may be. It's never going to change in terms of work ethic, to me, in my opinion. So yes, the data, the information is useful. Give it all to me, but at the end of the day, the user has to use it in the right way.
All right, last thing for everybody in here, because I know that Doug needs to take off here quickly. So social media, I want everybody to get their phones out right now. Everybody get your phones out. Doug, how do you use social media? And where can people find you on social media? Because it is part of technology.
I don't know how. I use social media to connect with fans, stay relevant in the news. Not me stay relevant in the news, but to stay relevant, up to date in the news, I should say.
Good point of clarification.
Yeah.
Okay, Ariana, how do you use it? How can we find you?
Yeah, similar. I used it as an athlete. It kind of came on, I feel like I experienced everything during my 10 years on the national team, because, Twitter came to me and my agent was like, you need a Twitter. I was like, why does anyone care what I'm doing? And you kind of had to go with this. But I think it's an awesome way for athletes to have an authentic voice. And, for me, I still use it. I still find it really fun. But I love to see and hear from their perspective and see the world from their point of view, people that I admire. So I think it's great for athletes.
All right, here you go. If you got your phones out, cameras on, these two are going to strike a pose that you're going to post on social media. Ready? I'm going to give you a countdown so that we don't all have to redo this. You ready? Are you guys posing? Here we go.
Get your phones out, folks. Get those phones out. Get those phones out.
2, 3. That was the pose, just a smile.
Get a little.
Make sure that you hashtag that, you post that. Thank you very much for your participation, and thanks to these fine folks as we let them go.